Bist du gewesen einmal in Belz?
I think this is the first time I hear all of Belz.
Yeah, so most people don't know the first part. Yeah, he's asking him, is there anything left in the shtetl? Is the house still standing? Is the window still intact? It's vacant, it's empty.
You're ready?
Let's do it.
All right.
What did they say, break a leg?
No, don't break a leg. Hello everyone, my name is Frida Weisel, and on this channel I explore various aspects of Hasidic life, Jewish life, Yiddish language, and more. Today I am doing something really fun and very different. For the first time, I have a musical guest, Yossi Desser, who is with me for a conversation about Yiddish song, Jewish songs, its stories, and for some performances. So welcome, Yossi.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to do this. So we're going to start by, we both come from the post-Holocaust world, right?
Yep.
Your grandparents were all Holocaust survivors?
My grandparents were all Holocaust survivors, correct?
So I think having come from the stories of the Holocaust, I think it has in some ways shaped the music of contemporary Jewish scene, of the Hasidic scene. Obviously, you've been playing at a lot of Hasidic events. You are a very accomplished, wonderful singer and performer at events where you sing in Yiddish. You have a love for Yiddish songs and so on. So I guess I want to hear from you what you would say about the influences of the Holocaust in your own music, and then maybe we can talk about music in general that is influenced by the Holocaust.
Well, I come from a very musical family, so my music was influenced first and foremost by my father was a Wunderkind. He played by the Alte Satmar Rebbe, and we always had music at home. My brothers are singers. I have one brother that does it professionally. He's a cantor. And my father, like I said, he was a Wunderkind by the old Satmar Rebbe. And so he was a very big influence in my music. And at home, I grew up with music. There was constantly music at home. I started playing the piano when I was a little kid, probably 6 years old. It was my older brother's mini piano, like a mini keyboard, and I started playing with like one finger, and then I taught myself how to play. So it's constantly music at home. So that's my childhood was influenced by music. And then when I got older, I became much closer to my grandparents also because I was single, and my grandmother lived in the neighborhood, and I constantly hung out by her house. So I got to see a little bit more of her musical talent. She was an incredible singer. She didn't do it professionally, obviously, because she's a Hasidic from woman. But at home, she'd be singing once in a while at the Shabbos table if it was just the grandchildren.
She lived by herself?
Towards the end of her life, my grandfather passed away, I would say 15 years before she died. So for about 15 years, she lived by herself. But she was definitely a big influence as I became an adult, and she introduced me to the Yiddish music and some of Yiddish theater, which I'm not really sure how she learned those songs, because it definitely didn't play at her house. Growing up in Europe, in one of the shtetls in Hungary, Kalover was the name of the shtetl. She was about 17, 18 years old, during the war. She was in Auschwitz for about 6 months, because in Hungary she was towards the end. She didn't have the numbers on her hands, so she survived.
How would you say, I want to bring it back to, because I want to start with some music of the Holocaust. That's what I want to, I guess, ground this in. So how would you say you maybe experienced music and the Holocaust? There's some beautiful videos, or maybe it's one of you playing for your grandmother online.
So, like I said before, when I was single, I used to go to my grandmother a lot more. And my career actually started with a video that I played for my grandmother, which was back in 2013, I think. Wenn ein Mensch und ich bin nicht gläubig, sollst du ihm gut nicht glauben. Seine Fenster ist nur stäubig, die kennst ihm aufheiben. Das Spintelin mit eibig bleiben, und mit eibig brennen. After that video came out, I played guitar. You know, I started learning guitar as a teenager, and it wasn't really my instrument. Piano was more my instrument. I'm still more comfortable on the piano, and guitar came later. So I played at home. I played amongst friends, and then the home attendant was home. There was a Lipa Schmelzer released a new album. He had a song. It was called "The Pintele Yid." And I figured, and I told him, like, I don't know if I told her to record it or it just happened to be she recorded it, and she wanted to send it maybe to a family member. And I sang for her the song Pintele Yid, and it just went viral, and that's how my Kumsitz guitar career took off. And since then, because of that video, I ended up putting it online, and then people asked me for more videos, so I started doing, like, it wasn't consistent, but I did once or twice a week with my grandmother, a little bit of Yiddish stuff, a little bit of contemporary, a little bit of different, different music. And then I recorded a song. It's an old Yiddish song. It's called Oy bin ich schon alt, also alt, Oy bin ich schon also alt geworden. I recorded it when tira ba 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 bum da 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 da. It's sort of like a lullaby. It's a sad. It could be like a Holocaust song, meaning it was composed in that era. And when she passed away, I published that. That one that I recorded with her, I published that one, and that was the last video I had with my grandmother. But speaking of music of music during the Holocaust, I mean, the song that I'm going to be playing soon is Ani Mamin. That's a very famous Ani Mamin. Ani Mamin, we have lots and lots of different tunes on Ani Mamin, but this one is a really special.
We want to say what Ani Mamin is.
It's the 13 principles of the Maimonides, and it's the loose translation is that I believe of the coming of Mashiach, the Messiah, even though it's a little bit delayed. I'm going to wait for him every day. And so this song, the one that I'm going to be singing, was composed by a guy. He was a famous composer back in Ukraine. There was a Hasidic dynasty was called Modzitz, and he was a composer for them. And on the train to Treblinka, he composed this song, and he made an announcement after he wrote it down on a paper. He made an announcement that whoever is going to take. So the Modzitz Rebbe fled before the war. He went to Israel. I think they're in Bnei Brak. And he made an announcement, whoever takes this song to the Modzitz Rebbe, he's going to give half of his Olam Haba, half of the world to come. And 2 people took him up on the offer. And the story goes that 2 people jumped out, 1 didn't make it, and the other one ended up surviving, taking it to the Modzitz Rebbe, and that's how we have the song Ani Mamin.
Very beautiful, very sad also.
So there are a lot of songs that I actually saw. There's a play now at Volksbühne. It's called Amid Falling Walls.
Yeah, you told me you were.
Yeah, and all the songs are pretty much the songs that were composed during the Holocaust. Some of it is in different ghettos, so it could be in Poland and different parts of Europe and different what is it called, camps. But there were supposedly all those songs that's playing right now amid falling walls are composed by teenagers. Actually, this song is also they threw it in there, Ani Mamin. They sing it for a little bit, not the full song. They sing a little bit of this one. They sing a little bit of, I played it before. there's a famous song that you probably grew up with it. Probably most of your plays you did in school was probably on that tune. It's da 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 da. It goes like this. It's not Yom-Tov Ehrlich. Like all the Yiddish plays that we know, like Yosef Spiel al Naharis Bovo, all those plays have that tune. I don't know if the exact lyrics. It's about during the Holocaust, and it's about a mother leaving their child by a non-Jewish family and saying that I have to leave and I'm doing this to save your life. That's
speaking to the child. The mother is speaking to the child.
Speaking to the
That's
child.
the song.
Yes. I mean, Yom-Tov Ehrlich has also a lot of his songs. The famous lullaby that he has, Schlaf mein Kind, is the same idea, right?
Yeah, let's talk about Yom-Tov Ehrlich because he's so central to the story. Let's talk about him after we play Ani Mamin.
Okay, so let's do Ani Mamin first.
You good?
I think so.
Okay, you trooper.
Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Beyeminu Shelaymu, Bevia Samushia, Via Samushia Ani Mamin, Via Samushia, Via Samushia Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Ani Mamin, Veyeminu Shelaymu, Oy bevia, Oy amushia, bevia samushia Ani Mamin, V'yafalpi she'yismameya, Im kol ze Ani Mamin, Im kalav ze achakeloi b'chol yoim sheyuvoi.
How did it feel? Good?
So, yeah. So, whenever I sing this one, it always gives me goosebumps, you know, considering how this song was composed and the guy who composed it didn't make it, but the song really will live on forever. And I've been singing it ever since.
It's such a beautiful song. These days, with what's going on in the world now, I think about anti-Zionism a lot, and I have a hard time. I see myself as a secular person. I have a hard time understanding people who are anti-Zionist because they're waiting for the Mashiach. But then when you hear a song like that and the longing, and you can feel how special that waiting is.
Of course. I mean, you could be Zionistic and still waiting for Mashiach. People living in Tel Aviv, they're completely secular. They're still waiting for there's different levels.
That's
you know what
true.
I mean? You can still wait for Mashiach, whatever it means to other people. For some people it means one thing. For other people it means something else. But technically we're all waiting for some sort of redemption, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I think about the people in particular for whom Zionism doesn't jive with waiting for the Mashiach.
Right.
Which is how we grew up.
I don't want to speak for Satmar, even though I grew up with Satmar.
Right.
And my father would say, I think you know what you're talking about. But it's basically the Satmar Rebbe would, if the people say if he would be alive right now, he would feel really, whatever is going on with anti-Semitism around the world, and whatever happened in October 7, the brutal massacre by Hamas, 1,400 people got killed, and 240 were taken hostage, and we're hearing some good news as we're recording right now that
thankfully
some of them are being released, and hopefully by the time this podcast publishes, everybody is going to be home reunited with their family. But when it comes to Hasidic Judaism, or specifically Satmar, is like it's a don't ask, don't tell situation. Chabad is like that. I mean, Satmar is a little bit more, so you would have one of the Rebbes speaking a little bit about Zionism, but it's definitely a far cry of, it's not the same as the Nidre Karta, as they call them. It's one of the Satmar Rebbes, the Williamsburg Zamalaib. He was giving one of his... he was giving a speech a couple of weeks ago, and he basically denounced the idea of, the Nidre Karta, and this is not what the Satmar Rebbe was about. The Satmar Rebbe wasn't, saying that you have to, walk with the pro-Palestine, and it's a very dangerous route for, especially Hasidic Jews, and they look Hasidic, and they put them at the forefront of these rallies. You can see them with their kids and with the full garb. That's not what the Satmar Rebbe was about. Satmar Rebbe had an issue with the creation of a state halachically. But once the state is already there are some, when he was still alive, there was how do they call it? Some hafganas and rallies about the idea of secular Zionism, but they would never go out and march with the Palestinians, and the most Satmar nowadays, they're part of, they're very much in tune with the news, and they pray for safety in Israel. They pray for the hostages to being released, and some of them, a lot of them went to DC at the big rally a couple of weeks ago. So it's There've been Yom Tfilis, as they call it,
Day of Prayers. I saw that.
After the October 7. So, like I said, it's the religious part of it is where it's complicated.
I think there is a lot of conflation of this very fringe, tiny group, Nidre Karta, that allies itself with Palestinians, pro-Palestinian, even allying itself with Iran, and they are the kind of visually memorable message where just a couple of extremists, who the entire community can consider extremists, will end up becoming the memory through which all Hasidic Jews are judged.
Right, because most to the general public, I mean, if you look like a Hasidic Jew, you're a Hasidic Jew, and people don't know the nuances between different sects, but they're not part of Satmar at all.
I so appreciate that we talked about this. We were not going to go there.
But we did. We have to,
that is true. There's also, it's painful to see how much misunderstanding. There's almost like using the face of the minority group to make a statement. People with other interests make a statement, and there's so much misinformation around that. So let's talk about Yom-Tov Ehrlich. Are you good with that?
Let's do it.
Let's talk about Yom-Tov Ehrlich. So the Holocaust, after the Holocaust, which changed the entire Hasidic world, Hasidim come to America and start this rebuilding, and there's very little music. One of the very few singers, and he marked my childhood in a very profound way, is Yom-Tov Ehrlich. So let's talk about him.
So Yom-Tov Ehrlich he grew up in Romania, and it was maybe Ukraine. It was still part of the Russian Empire. And he fled right before the war. I'm not sure. No, I think he basically survived being some sort of a musician, maybe in the Ukrainian army. In the army, that's what I think. And there was so post-war, there was not a lot of music in the Hasidic world. There was cantorial music, Yossi Rosenblatt and Pinchik, and there was like the heydays of cantorial music was in the early 1920s. So we had a little bit of recording from that. But generally, music post-war wasn't really. My father grew up either with cantorial music, or there was a little bit of Yiddish theater that was acceptable. There was a guy, I'm going to sing one of the Belz. He sings it. It's not his song. He sings it in one of his recorded albums. His name was Benzion Wittler. He grew up in Belz. His parents were very Hasidic, and I think as a young kid he realized that he has a knack for singing and acting, and he joined one of the theater group, the art group in Romania. So there are some a little bit recordings from him when my father grew up, but Yom-Tov Ehrlich came along. He was very talented. He was a poet. He was a writer. He was a musician. He played at my parents' wedding. He was part of this band. Post-war, there was maybe one or two bands. There was the original Freilich band, and there was like Klipnik, I think was his name. And Yom-Tov Ehrlich was part of the band. He played the accordion. And, he couldn't do his songs it's not really wedding songs, so he was just playing the melody. Klezmer, back then, they just did instrumental. They didn't have wedding singers. Wedding singers are a pretty new phenomenon. So he started his career recording music, I think in early 60s, like late 50s, early 60s. And he befriended my father, and then when the Alta Satmar Rebbe passed away in 1979, my father convinced him that he should just do an album for the Satmar Rebbe. And he said, okay, let's do it. So basically, he used to come to my parents' house every Sunday. It's not just my parents. He was doing a lot of research of this. You
remember him?
I don't, because he died in 1990, and I was 5 years old. He used to come pretty often to my parents' house on Sunday. He made his research on the Satmar Rebbe. My father provided him with stories of the Satmar Rebbe. My father provided him with some of the tunes of Satmar. He ended up doing a 3-part cassette on the Satmar Rebbe. So all the tunes were Satmar and Niggunim. Not all of them that famous, but famous in the Satmar world, because a lot of, like when it comes to Hasidic music, some of it just stays in the dynasty, in this court, or in the sect, as you want to call it. So my father basically produced 3 albums for the Satmar Rebbe. And he did a bunch of interviews with Rebbe Yossi Ashkenazi, which was the right-hand man for the Satmar Rebbe. He sat down with Ezriel Glick. I don't know if you know that person. He was also one of the close people that he used to be in the orbit of the Satmar Rebbe. So he made a lot of research, and then he wrote his songs, and then they sold it. And like, I spoke to my brother recently, and they said they sold it for like $13. It was considered a lot back then for three cassettes. And he lived already in Israel. He was trying to make money. He didn't really make money off of this music.
His grandchildren must have made a ton.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know what the copyright things with I don't know how it works. In the Jewish world, copyright works on a different way as in the secular world. I know Avram Fried did 2 albums of Yom-Tov Ehrlich, the Yiddish Oitzris 1 and Yiddish Oitzris 2, and Levi Falkowitz
also has now done an adaptation.
He did did another one yet of the whatever. There's tons of them. There's 36 albums that of Yom-Tov Ehrlich.
We had a case.
Yes.
With a cassette.
So the funny thing about this case is, my father they didn't sell it in the stores. You couldn't buy Yom-Tov Ehrlich tapes in the stores. Like even in the Svudim store, you wouldn't go to a Judaica store and buy Yom-Tov Ehrlich tapes because I don't think there was enough people that were interested in it to just keep it on the shelf. It was also a lot. It was a big case. So my father pretty much had a bunch of these cases at home. And you remember the Anshe Shlemayni?
The phone book.
And the phone book in Monroe.
The Satmar phone book.
The Satmar phone book. It had... I think until today, it has some of the professions that people do. Not everybody. It has basically if you're a plumber or if you're somebody that serves the community, that you will have your profession in that book. So if people are looking for something for services, they know where to look. So
under your name?
Under your name, yeah, right next to your name, it would say your profession. So my father worked in the diamond industry for 45 years. But in the Anshe Shlemayni, it just said that he sold Yom-Tov Ehrlich books. Yom-Tov Ehrlich tapes. As a kid, I was a little embarrassed, My father's he's a Balbat Shahid. He works in the diamond. He also sells Yom-Tov Ehrlich tapes on the side, but that's not really what he does for a living.
You were embarrassed that it defined him.
Yeah, find him as like this is what he does for a living. Now looking back, I'm proud of it, but back then it was a little embarrassing as a kid.
So people came to your house all the time?
Yeah, so they used to get a lot of calls. Do you still have a set? I don't remember how much it costs, but it wasn't that cheap. It was 36 albums. And he didn't sell that much. Surprisingly enough, you would think that whoever you talk to nowadays, like if anybody's grew up in my generation or older, and like what music did you hear growing up, especially in the Hasidic world, that would be Yom-Tov Ehrlich. That was, if it's pre-MBD, then it's definitely Yom-Tov Ehrlich. It would be Shlomo Carlebach a little bit, but not in every house. I don't know if you grew up with Shlomo Carlebach at home. You did not.
I didn't grow up with Mordechai Ben David either. He was too
modern.
He's too modern.
It's...
Everyone I knew Yom-Tov Ehrlich. That he was the one universal. He tied everything together because you didn't have to hide that you were listening to him.
Right. But he wasn't... I asked recently my father why he wasn't more popular. He's so popular nowadays. I grew up with his albums, but by the time I'm old enough to understand everything, Avram Fried already had his adaptations of the Yiddish Oitzers 1 and 2. It was easier to listen.
Yeah.
The music was better. The enunciations was better. Even though he still sang a little bit, because you have to understand, Avram Fried is Chabad. Chabad's dialect is different than the Hungarian Yiddish dialect, so it's close enough.
Yom-Tov Ehrlich's dialect was like Russian Yiddish. It was really hard to understand.
It was hard to understand, and on top of the recording wasn't crisp. It was digital recording. He used to record his albums in the women's section of the Skvera Besmedrish in Williamsburg. It's the shul is still there. I actually recently went and just,
Where is it?
It's on Bedford Avenue, corner Rodney Street.
Uh-huh.
And he had these old Sony tape recorders that had the red record button. Do you remember those?
Yes.
As a kid? So that's what he recorded most of his albums.
Wow.
So I always joke, sometimes I go to gigs and they ask me to sing a Yom-Tov Ehrlich song. I give it a little bit of a backstory that my father was close to him, and I always say my father produced the 3 albums. And what do I mean by producing is he basically pressed the red button. He pressed the red button, but
he gets credit.
Yeah.
So let's play a Yom-Tov Ehrlich song, but there are some classics. There's one titled Williamsburg.
Yeah, Williamsburg, and Levi put it on his album. He did a beautiful job.
Yeah.
He did a lot of songs that Avram Fried didn't get to. There's tons of them, but there are famous ones that Avram Fried didn't get to. It is I did a version of it on my YouTube channel, and Levi put it into his current album.
Oh, nice.
So
then there's some Holocaust songs like what we mentioned earlier, Schlof Mein
Kind.
Which is very sad. I remember, and the Brieftrede. I remember as a child being heartbroken when I'd hear that song.
Yeah, he has a lot of his songs is in the era of the Russian pogroms and World War I and World War II. Yes. So that's pretty much what most of his songs are based on.
So what are we playing?
So we're gonna do. It's called "A Captain's Call Nidre." It's one of those popular songs. I spoke to my brother recently about Yom-Tov Ehrlich, and he told me that Yom-Tov Ehrlich came here. He was sick, and he came here to see some doctors. He ended up being in the hospital in Muncie, and a week before he died, my father and my brother went to his to visit him in the hospital, and they sang this song that I'm going to be singing right now, which is "The Captain's Call Nidre." It's one of the most. I don't sing a lot of Yom-Tov Ehrlich at my gigs, but unless you're like a really big fan, so it's a bit of a commitment. It's long. It's like 6-7 minute songs.
And their stories.
Their stories, and it's the concept of a Yom-Tov Ehrlich song is amazing when you sit at home in the car, but at an event it gets, unless it's a concert, but at an event at a Sheva Brachas, people want to schmooze, it gets a little bit, so sometimes I try to just skip some of the I take out the fluff, so I cut it down from 6 minutes to 3 minutes. But the gist of the song is still there. And
do we have to explain it in advance?
We could explain the gist of the song is basically there was a captain. He was a Jewish captain. He didn't know he was Jewish, and he was serving in the Russian army. And they stopped somewhere in Odessa, which is a small shtetl in Romania, which is right next to the port. And he started hearing a tune. I didn't know what this tune was, and he started walking around the shtetl, and the tune became louder, and it drew him in, and he bumped into this old woman. I think it was like a babushka, tichel over the Augen, right?
With a scarf,
there's a scarf over her head.
Yeah.
And he asked this woman, and he asked, like, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm going crazy. I'm hearing this tune. And then she said, this tune is today's Yom Kippur. It's the Day of Atonement, and I can see that you're a Jew, and that's why this tune was, drawing you in. And then she was saying, like, they sent away all the Baltfilas. There's no one to lead the services at our shul.
Who's they?
Meaning, she said that we have in our shul, in our synagogue. Who sent them away? I guess it was during the World War II. It must have been the Nazis. It could have been the pogroms, but I'm pretty sure that it's probably the Nazi era, and the Nazis just sent away all the Baltfilas. So he's the only one left. So they put a talus on him, and he was leading the services on Yom Kippur. And then he was shouting, "Is like, this is crazy what just happened." Just the tune reminded me of my own old religion, and this tune is what brought him back to a Yiddishkeit. It's a beautiful tune. It's a beautiful story.
Let's hear it.
Die Sinn ist vergangen, a Rob in a Flamm, auf Qualjes die Strahlen zegossen. Es fuhrt a gepanzerter Schiff auf den Jam mit russische Kriegsmatrosen. Der Schiffskapitan steht beim Spitz auf dem Deck und halt a Lornette, a kleine. Und plötzlich der seht a herrlichen Breck und auf ihm a Stott gut a Schöne. Odessa heißt die Stadt, ihre Lampen beim Port glanzen wie Diamond von Weiten. Und plötzlich der Härter an Niggun von dort, von alte vergessene Zeiten. Es der Mann dem im Niggun sich reuen es a Sach von Jahren mit viel Vergnügen. Nicht Beethoven, Mozart, nicht Wagner, nicht Bach, es ist etwas aneinander mit Niggun. Und plötzlich der seht es geht bei der Wand, an altitschke Frau eingebeugen. A kleine Gepäckele unter den Hand, a Tichel a Rebbe die Augen. Mutter sucht an Niggun ich her, und ich kenn mich kein Ort nicht gefunden.
Es zieht mir die Herz und es bringt sich her. Ich fühl, als ich rief sich von Sinnen. Sogt ihm die Alter, dein Panem sogt aus, als du bist ein Jid und der Rebbe. Ist bei dir Hand, doch die Bänke nicht groß, weil Hand ist die Nacht von Yom Kippur. Die Nacht von Yom Kippur geht ein Geschrei, ich seh meine kindrische Jorn. In dus ist der Niggun doch von Kol Nidre, es lebt mir alt in sie Korn. A Dank sogt die Alte, der was hat ihr geschickt, Punkt in der Zeit, helft der Tomit. Man hat bei uns alle bald viel uns verschickt, nicht da, wer soll zugehen zum Moment. A kleine Geschilchel, es brennen vor Licht, a Talis hat man ein zu getrunken. Trägt zu zum Seder sein blassen Gesicht, in Häuptun heuer zu sagen. Menschen, sie weiß dir, was ist geschehen da, schreckliche, heilige Sachen. Zu nehmen am Menschen und ein halbes Show in a so glücklich zu machen. Hier, ich hab ein gefunden, mein Glück, man hat mir von so'm Päuf gehäuben, einigen gesucht und gefunden zurück, mein alte verlorenem Glauben. Einigen Gesicht und gefunden zurück, mein alte verlorenem Glauben.
It's such a beautiful song. You know what I find so interesting is, of course, my family is dreaming of me coming back because the way I live is to them the equivalent of being lost in that ocean. Yet I find this song so beautiful. It's like touches something. It's mine. I feel like it's mine.
Yeah,
even
it's
though
nostalgic. You grew up with those songs. It's the concept, the idea is beautiful. It's just a lot of his tunes are surrounded with those kind of concepts. Jakob is the same idea. I mean, it's not exactly, but Jakob is, the gist of the Jakob song.
which is a man also in the secular world who refuses to give up his faith.
He was actually a frum person, a very religious person, and he was hiding with the in Siberia, maybe it was
In Uzbekistan.
In Uzbekistan, right? In
Yes.
Uzbekistan, and he was hiding his Judaism, but he was still keeping it privately, and whoever he was working for, they wanted to set him up with a non-Jewish girl. And he almost fell for it, and then he saw his Rebbes and
his
Yossi is
mother.
fleeing, yeah.
Remember, you see, but I don't remember the Rebbe. I remember the thing that is etched in my memory is that he remembers his mother crying at the Shabbos candles.
Right, that too. It's the song is a long song.
It's
There's a lot of
long song,
paragraphs.
yeah.
I mean, Jakob is the most requested song of Yom-Tov Ehrlich at my events. The song that I just did, that's second. And then there's more of like an upbeat one. Ani Mamin, ich ti gläuben, ma selber Schäfer dürfen heuben. Remember that one?
Yeah.
Pa-da-ba-dee-da-da-da-dee-da. It's probably a Russian. Some of his tunes are not his own. Some of it is Russian folk songs or Russian marches. Some of them are his originals.
Really?
Yeah, some of it are originals, but
A lot of them
are not.
yeah.
But that doesn't take away from his brilliance.
Because he was a great social commentator.
Right, and he was also a poet. He was a brilliant lyricist. So. Yeah, Yom-Tov Ehrlich it's making a little. I was gonna say it's making a little bit of a comeback. I mean, the fact that Levi Falkowitz just released an album with the Yom-Tov Ehrlich, and then Avram Fried is working on part 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's very important, these songs. It's hard to listen to the original one. It's like watching like an old, a 1960s movie where you still hear the static and it's black and white. It's a classic. And the fact that the dialect is different, and the quality of the music is not that great. So I mean, I'm sure it's still popular. Still, people listen to the songs, to the original version. But I've recently started listening to Avram Fried's version. It came out in the '90s. I mean, the music is incredible. I don't know. When's the last time you heard? Have you ever heard that version?
I've heard it here and there. I think on YouTube I've seen some of the...
Oh, you've never heard, like at home you didn't have Avram Fried's version of Yom-Tov Ehrlich?
No.
Oh, you have to listen to it. It's amazing. It elevates the songs because of the music. I think Yaron Gashevsky is the producer of the music, and he did a wonderful job of arranging the songs, and it's perfect.
Really?
Yeah.
See, maybe there's like a purist feeling towards Yom-Tov Ehrlich. I always had a very hard time making out what he says because his accent is so different. But God forbid you take the easy way out and listen to someone sanitized.
Yeah, I don't think it's not a, I think he elevated the music, not because Yom-Tov Ehrlich couldn't do it himself. It's just he lived in a different era. Sound recording was much different. He just recorded it with his.
Yeah.
It was
Did it have a
acoustically.
ukulele?
No, he had an accordion.
An accordion.
And it was recorded acoustically, so it wasn't plugged in. Like I said, it's just a Sony record button, play. There's no edits. There was no, like, if he probably. By the way, I think one of the words I said, like, instead of meat or ints, whatever, it's okay. People will fill it in.
Not a problem.
But, like, if you make a mistake like this, you have to sing it again. And his songs are 7 minutes long. And I know a little bit about the feeling because some of my videos that I record is on an iPhone. And if I mess up towards the end, I just record it again. Yeah. I don't splice it. I don't dice it. It's just, you got to do it again.
It's terrible.
Yeah, so
Yom-Tov Ehrlich is very wordy. Let's talk about the Niggun, which is the opposite.
Right. Let's talk about a Hasidic Niggun. A Hasidic Niggun basically doesn't have any words to it. There's no lyrics. And it's like Yamamai, oh yo 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 yo, mama mama mai, bye 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 bye.
And you bang the table.
That's when it like more of like upbeat. But when it's slow and
then
somber, then you do this. And the idea is, because lyrics is a distraction, it's supposed to be like it transcends lyrics. It's, it's supposed to be some sort of meditation. It takes you to higher places. So a lot of Hasidic Nigunim doesn't have any lyrics. Chabad is known for it. I mean, Chabad's number one song is the Dalet Bavis. And it's now a mainstream song. You sing it by every chuppah. It's a real mainstream song at this point. A lot of Nigunim for Chabad is mainstream. Like I recently found out that I grew up with this song. We used to sing it at Kof Aleph Kislev. I don't know if they sang it in school, but I thought it's a Satmar Niggun. Once I had a gig in Crown Heights, and I don't know if he asked for a Satmar Niggun or I just sang it. And then he came over to me. He's like, "Wow, you're singing a Chabad Niggun." I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is ours. This is not. It's a real Chabad. It's the Balatanya composed 10 songs.
The Balatanya is the
first
Chabad Rebbe.
Chabad Rebbe composed 10 songs. He's known to compose 10 songs. The Dalet Bavis is his. Keliata is his.
He was very musical.
He was very musical. The other ones are like taniyas, like tunes. It's not really songs, but I think Tama Lachon. I don't know if it's his, but maybe one of these the Chabad experts will message you. It's like, no, I don't think so. But I'm pretty sure it's one of those. But so a Niggun usually doesn't have lyrics. I'm gonna maybe sing one. The Rizhuner Niggun is.
What is the Rizhuner?
Rizhun is a sect. Is a Hasidic dynasty in Eastern Europe. You see, the borders in Europe is a little confusing because some of it is Russian, post-Russian, before the USSR, and the borders are complicated. But Poland, Galicia, Hungary, those are, a Polish Yid and a Galician Yid and a Hungarian Jew. Those are different regionals of Hasidic sects, like Belz and Ger would be Polish Polish. They have a lot of marches. Like Gad has a lot of marches.
What's a march?
A march is it's a genre of music. A march, like Chabad has one of the songs that it's also an adaptation of a secular adaptation is the Napoleon's March. It's sung in Chabad all the time. The Rebbe used to sing it, the Alter Rebbe. And a march is I'm not exactly sure. A march is a genre of music. It's bum 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 bum. That's a march.
I see.
And Ger, because of Poland, I guess back then they had a lot of marches. They were influenced by the shtetls, by the musicians at the time.
Yeah, the context.
So Gad was known. They also had a composer. I think his name was Yankov Talmud. He was a famous composer in Gad. He composed a lot of marches. Belz has a lot of Niggunim that has been mainstream now. Like at weddings, the majority of like Freilich Niggunim, they call it first dance. Those are Beltz songs. Like it might have been one of those tunes, and they just put lyrics on it afterwards, like ba ba da ba 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 da 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 da. So first dance is a lot of influenced by Belz. There's a famous song in the secular Jewish world, Hava Nagila Hava. It's a Belz and Niggun.
Really?
It's a Belz and Niggun. I don't
know the like Hollywood's favorite.
Right, it's the song when you walk like if I walk in the subway with my yarmulke and there's a musician there, he sees a Jew, is like, can you play me a Jewish song? This is gonna be it.
Yeah.
And it's a Belz and Niggun. And at some point, the Beltz stopped singing it, and in their like Tish or in Shul, or they stopped singing it because it became very famous in the secular Jewish world. But in Skver, which I recently found out, they always sang it.
Skver is another group.
Skver is another sect in Monsey, New York. They always sang that song during the Simchas Torah, the Hakafas. They never stopped. Beltz stopped for a little bit, for like 30 years. And then recently they said, you know what, why should we stop? Let them stop. It's our song.
Fair.
So they took it back and they just started singing it again. So this is da ba ba da ba 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 da da da. So Niggunim doesn't have, it doesn't have a lot of lyrics. I mean, at some point, you put lyrics because to remember it, like Zmiris on Shabbos, at the Rebbe's Tish, how would you say Zmiris? Like liturgy?
Yeah, liturgy. At the table.
The Shabbos table, you would sing these Hasidic tunes on, like, say, Manichu v'Simchu, and then okay, this is a Manichu v'Simchu song. And then it's known on that name. Satmar has a few famous songs, Shulam Aleichem, Shulam Aleichem, Shulam. This was composed by Berish Visheva. He was a famous composer for Satmar. He composed for other sects as well, but for Satmar he made this one and the Naniim song, which is also a complicated tune. It's a Niggun. It doesn't have any words. For a musician, it's a nightmare because if you have to remember a tune, if it doesn't have lyrics, your brain doesn't. It's hard.
It's hard for your brain to process.
Yeah, so basically what I do is like the Rizhuner's Niggun, I'll remember it because I basically associate it with a Rebbe. Once you associate the Rizhuner's Niggun, I can start the song. Some of my colleagues, he's known for singing all these old Yiddish Niggunim, and I asked him, it's like, how do you remember these tunes? It's exactly that. He basically, if he doesn't know the roots of it, he would just put the Dabje Rebbe on, like this is his song, just for
his own memory
purposes. So the Rizhuner's Niggun, I know how to sing it because it's the Rizhuner's Niggun, the Baditcheva's Niggun, and the Krakow song, the Krukova Niggun, which I recently found out it's Shlomo Kalbach composed that song. There is no Kruka dynasty. Kruka is a shtetl in Poland. But he made a song he visited post-Holocaust. He made a song on Kruka. It's a famous song. I sing it a lot at my events. But one of those are Niggunim there's no lyrics. There's just, you have to, it's a form of meditation. You start singing it and then you get into it. It starts with, the low part and then you get to the higher part and you just lose yourself in the song.
Ooh, let's hear.
So let's do one of this Nigunim. This is the Rizhuner's Niggun.
I have no idea what you're going to sing.
I'm sure once I start singing it, you'll know what
I'll
it is.
know, yeah. And then I'll remember it afterwards because I'll know it's the Rizhuner. I have the mnemonic.
Yes, now you'll have the mnemonic memory, yes.
Tididai-dam, oi-dai-dai-dam, oi. Tididai-dai-dai-dam, oi-dai-dai-dam, oi-dai-dai-dai-dam, oi-yom-ahom. Tididai-dai-dam, oi-oi-oi-oi-yom. Tididai-dai-da, oi-yom-ah-oi-yom. Tididai-dai-da, dom-oi-yom. Tididai-da-dai-dai-dai-dai-dam, tididai-dam, tididai-dai-dai-dai-dam. Oh-hoi. Tididai-dai-dai-dam, oi-da-da-dam. Tididai-dai-dai-dam, oi-da-da-da-dum. Tididai-dai-dai-dam, oi-da-da-dam, oi-da-da-dam, oi-da-dam. Tididai-dam, tididai-dai-dai-dam. Tididai-dai-dam, oi-oi-oi-oi-yom. Tididai-dai-dam, oi-yom-ah-oi-yom. Tididai-dai-dai-dam, tididai-oi-oi-yom. Tididai-dai-dai-dai-dai-dam, tididai-dam, tididai-dai-dai-dai-dam.
I basically did the podcast version of the song because you're supposed to do the first part. Every part you're supposed to do twice. I kind of cut it short a little bit. So, but when you want to get into it, you do the first part twice, the middle part twice, and then the high part you can go even 4 times, and then you go back to the middle part, so you lose yourself into the song. But for the podcast purpose, I just cut it a little bit.
It's very beautiful. You can still really get lost in it. So let's move on from here and talk. Since you touched on Nigunim, different groups, different sects. I say sects on my podcast. These different groups and the sects and where they come from. We talked about Belz. So let's talk about Belz. Can we talk about Belz because it's such a lovely song?
How about Belz? So at this point, the Niggun Belz is...
So Belz is a place and it's also a song, a classic
Belz is
song.
a shtetl. So it's interesting how this song, originally it was written in the 1930s in New York for Yiddish theater, for a play. It was a play called The Ghetto Song, The Songs of the Ghetto. It was about the pogroms in Ukraine and Russia, and they made a play of the songs composed during that time and about that time. So it's basically someone composed. So according to my research, someone composed it. They grew up not in the shtetl Belz. There's another shtetl that's called Beltz, B-A-L-T. It's also in that neighborhood, and they grew up in that neighborhood, and basically they wrote that song as like of reminding them of that shtetl. So, but eventually it became, because Belz is a very famous sect in the Hasidic world, and man shtetl Belz, and it became famous. And it's basically, when you sing it nowadays, you would think about the shtetl Belz, not the original version of, because when you talk to a Belz Hasid, And I recently had a conversation about this song, and he said that this song wasn't really created for Belz. For some reason, they're not really, because it has a little bit of a Yiddish theater influence. They're not very happy that it's like a Belzening. It's not a Belzening. It's about a shtetl Belz, and now we can say that it's about the shtetl Belz. And
to set this up, Yiddish theater is secular. It is not religious, right?
Correct. Yiddish theater started in Romania in the 1880s by Avrum Goldfaden was his name. The first Yiddish theater song would be like Rajinke's Min Mandland, Rajinke. It's also a lullaby. You know that song?
I know.
In Dein Beis Amigdash in a Winkel Cheder. Anyway, this is considered the first.
Rajinke's Min means raisins and almonds, which used to be a childhood like treat.
Treats? No, the song is basically about the trading industry.
I see.
So you're gonna grow up to be rich. It's a lullaby. And the high part goes, meaning you're gonna be a merchant
of all the trades.
Of all the trades. So Rashinkins and Mandlan is
a Yiddish theater song.
Is a Yiddish theater song. So let's fast forward. The song made its way back into Poland, and From New York into Poland, they made a remake of the play in Poland. So when the Nazis invaded Poland and they started putting the Jews into the ghettos, and there's a story that I read that in Auschwitz, an SS officer overheard a kid singing this song or playing this song, and he basically made him play this tune while the Jews were walking into the gas chambers. It's really, really sad. So it's not a Yiddish theater song anymore. It has a lot more meaning. And when you sing it, it could be any shtetl in Europe. The World War II, the Nazis decimated every shtetl in Europe. So when you sing Man shtetl Belz, it could be Man shtetl, you name the shtetl, and there's nothing left. So when you sing it, it's a lot more meaningful. And when I sing it nowadays in the Hasidic world, which I sing a lot of those Yiddish theater songs, I change some of the lyrics sometimes. Like this one, for example, says "Warfen stehen de Lechenteich" on Shabbos. "Warf stehen de Lechenteich," which is technically muktzah. So I change it to
you
throw in like I would say is learning chimish, learning a book by
You're sanitizing the song.
I'm sanitizing this one and other Yiddish theater songs. I make it more palatable for the Hasidic world. So. But I get hired nowadays, and I would say 50% of my gigs are in the Hasidic world, 20% is in the Heimish world, and the other 20% is in the modern Orthodox world. 10% is at home.
Okay, I was going to ask.
You're going to have 10%. 10% is me singing like "Wheels on the Bus Go Around" for yeah.
You have a
little girl. Yeah, so that's 10% of my music now. Yeah. But yeah, I across the board when it comes to like Yiddish, even in the Heimische world, in the modern Orthodox world, not so much. I would do mostly, contemporary music and a little bit of American music. But in the Heimische world, the Hasidic world, I would sing those Yiddish Lieder. Yiddish Lieder. Yeah, I have a gig coming up at Bar Mitzvah, and the guy wants me to dress like at home, like in shtetl Beltz.
Oh, really? A kashketl.
Yeah, a kashketl, my tzitzis, yeah.
A yellow tzitzis.
Yeah, the full garb.
But it's not the real, it's not the garb of contemporary Williamsburg. It's like a retro garb.
It's a retro garb. It's the garb like when you see these contemporary videos of Tyree in America, you know what I mean? Yeah.
There are videos on YouTube. Some of them are advertisements that I post to my channel where you see that today's Hasidim imagine the past to have a special look. A yellow tzitzis, knickers, puffy knickers, kashketl.
Right. It's just, it reminds you look a little bit different. It could be that somewhat the teenagers look like that before they got married. The garbs changed a little bit, not much. So.
Yeah.
This is...
Before you sing, I just want to say what I'm reflecting on is the interesting thing of the borrowing. You supposedly have this insular world, but clearly their songs are leaking out to the wider world with songs like Hava Nagila. And then songs from secular Yiddish theater of New York become... I always thought Belz was a Heimish song from very, very from religious song.
Right. Most people think that it is. Some of it is, I always wonder, I asked my parents or my siblings, my uncles, like where my grandmother picked up these songs. Some of the after the war, they went to the DP camps, just like you have now, like musicians going to the front lines in Gaza, in Israel, visiting the sick. They're singing, Lipa Schmelzer and the big Israeli artists. Back then, the Yiddish theater musicians, entertainers, went to Europe, to the DP camp, entertaining the Jews who survived World War II.
Wow.
So some of it was picked up. Some of these songs were picked up in the Hasidic world through those through that era in the DP camps. I mean, it wasn't a lot. It was some of it was 6 months, a year, 2 years, but it's enough to
to
pick up
significant.
To have a little bit of an influence. Yes.
So let's hear it. I don't actually think I know the lyrics of Belz.
Der erzähl mir Alte, der erzähl mir geschwind, weil ich will wissen von Alzatin. Wie seht aus der Stiebele, was hat amul geglanzt, zerblieb nach der Bäumele, wo sich hab verpflanzt. Der Stiebel ist alt, verwachsen mit Machen groß. Der Alte dacht sie voll, der Fenster unaglos. Der Gannig ist krumm, sie beugen die Wände. Die wusste schon mehr, gar nicht erkennen. Der Gannig ist krumm, sie beugen die Wände. Die wusste schon mehr, gar nicht erkennt. Ai, 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 Beltz, meine Städtele Beltz, meine Heimele dort, wie ich hab meine kinderische Jahren verbracht. Bist du gewesen amul im Beltz, meine Städtele Beltz, meine Heimele dort, wie ich hab meine kinderische Jahren verbracht. Jeden Schabes pfleg ich laufen mit alle Kinderle gleich. Sitzen hinter den grünen Bäumele, warfen ständelichen Teich. Ui Beltz, meine Städtele Beltz, meine Heimele dort, wo ich hab meine kinderische Jahren verbracht. Bist du gewesen amul im Beltz, meine Städtele Beltz, meine Heimele dort, wo ich hab meine kinderische Jahren verbracht.
I think this is the first time I hear all of Belz.
Yeah, so most people don't know the first part.
Yeah.
He sets up the story, and then the Belz is the chorus, right?
Yeah.
Belz.
Mein Städtele Belz.
Yeah, he's asking him, is there anything left in the shtetl? Is the house still standing? Is the window still intact? And then he said, it's bewachsen mit Mochen groß. Look, it's, it has mushrooms growing out of the houses. Like, nobody's there. It's vacant. It's empty. And he just, he's remembering
place he spent his childhood.
Yeah. So the famous version of this song is Benzion Wittler. I mentioned him. He actually grew up in Belz. He had very frum Hasidic parents, and he kind of left to be an entertainer in the Yiddish theater world. But he has a very famous version of this song. So it could be because of him, and he grew up in Belz, and now we could sing it. This is Belz.
Because why?
Because he grew up in Belz. He has a famous version of the song, and he's actually probably speaking about himself.
I see.
That he grew up in Belz and there's nothing left, and you know.
Well, speaking of the borrowing, one song that has been on my mind lately, that is, so I was at a seminar and there was a Yiddish singer there who's like a secular Yiddish singer, and he sang a Hungarian song that I thought only my family and only my grandmother sings. So I am going to bother you to talk about Sola, Kokosh.
So interesting. So in the Hasidic world, not all the Rebbes were composers. Like we spoke about the Balatanya, he composed 10 songs.
The first Chabad Rebbe.
The first Chabad Rebbe. Then you have the Sklene Rebbe is known to compose all of his songs. Oy 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 Shabbos. So you had like a lot of famous Sklene song that was originally composed by the Rebbe. And then you had the Kalover Rebbe. The Kalover Rebbe is a sect in Hungary. So he composed a lot of his own compositions. Sola Kokosh is not his own composition. Sola Kokosh is an adaptation that he overheard from a shepherd. And the story goes that he said that he felt when he heard the song, he felt that originally it was sung in the Beis HaMikdash. It's like in the temple. How did he know that it was sung in the temple? Is because the minute he paid off the shepherd, he forgot the song.
Wait, explain what happened.
So he heard the song. He was walking on the street, and he overheard the shepherd singing this tune with the words. He took the adaptation was with the lyrics as well. He just added another paragraph. He overheard the song. The song talks about a bird that's yearning to go back to its nest or to its mom, and he basically heard the tune, and then he said that it could be about Jews waiting for Mashiach, yearning to go back to Israel and for the rebuilding of the temple. And so he went over to this shepherd and he said, you know what, I'm going to buy off the song. So he asked the shepherd how much he wants for the song. He paid him. The minute he paid him, the shepherd forgot the song. And that's how he knew that it's supposed to be a Jewish, and not only Jewish, not only Hasidic, it was originally from the Beis HaMikdash, from the temple. But I say, like, if I have a song like Sola Kokosh and he give me enough money, I'll probably also forget it. But, it's just a joke. But it is it's a beautiful song. I grew up with that song too. I mean, to this day, I didn't know, I made a little research on the song. I mean, I knew what it's about, but I didn't know growing up what it is. I couldn't really express. I don't speak Hungarian, but it is a beautiful tune, and it's the Kalover Rebbe. The original, there's a recording of the late Kalover Rebbe singing it, and he has a beautiful voice, and he sang it on a little bit of a cantorial way also.
Register, yeah.
It's a really beautiful way of singing it. And he did a couple of other famous songs, like Yiddish Lieder, like Gulas, Gulas, Viva Grois Bisti, Shchenag Deutsche. That's Viva Bisti, Vol de Gulas, Kleiner Gewein, Vol de Schchena, Neter Gewein. Right. So that's also his song, but he composed a lot of, I don't know all of his tunes, but Sola Kokosh and this one are two of his famous ones. So I'm going to attempt of doing
Hungarian.
It's funny because I go to different places to sing, and some of them I have weird requests. I've had a lot of requests for this song. There's a lot of Hungarian speaking in the audience. And then I had
Who still speaks Hungarian?
The older generation. There's some older generation that still speak. The second generation, some of them picked up Hungarian too. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, they understand.
My father understands. If he probably would have with whom to speak with, he would probably keep up the language. But he doesn't have with whom to, not in his neighborhood at least. But I've had events to request Hungarian tunes, and then I had at another event someone requested if I know any Italian. So I know this one Italian song. It's called "O Solo Mia." It's an operatic tune. "O Solo Mia." No, I don't know the lyrics. I look at it phonetically, and I was like, it's like cha, a lot of C, double C's.
It is Italian.
Anyway, so this Italian person. They're from Italy. He asked me to sing an Italian song. I sang it, and he basically came over to me. He says, it was beautiful, but it sounded more Hungarian than Italian. But then I sing Hungarian, and the guy come over to me. It's like it sounded more Italian. I should have just switched it, right?
You can't win.
I can't win, but I'm gonna try to do this one.
No, to my ear, I wouldn't know. So
I don't know Hungarian at all. So whoever speaks Hungarian, forgive me. I'm gonna do a little bit of Yiddish because that's how Kalover Rebbe does it.
Bashefer help shoin. Hab schoin Rachmunes, Gewalt leise in Cherno. Bashefer help schoin, hab schoin Rachmunes, Gewalt leise in Cherno. Sola Kokosh mar. Megvar ma Gelder zerben Schick mir zerben Sheit alle moda Gelder zerben Schick mir zerben Sheit alle moda De mikor les osma De mikor lesos ma Yibune amigdosh Ritzi yoin temale Akar lesos ma Yibune amigdosh Ritzi yoin temale Demols veto sein
Your Hungarian was amazingly good. I would know.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. One of the great joys of having an audience, which is wonderful, is that people listen and they let you know.
Right.
When there are mistakes, and that's not a problem.
Maybe part 2, we could do a live podcast with live music.
Yeah,
that would be
on the spot.
On the spot, yeah.
Halt. It was a mistake.
Yeah, that would be live feedback. It's always great to have audience feedback.
That is true. I guess if you do live gigs, you'd know that.
Yeah, it's you know if the song was a success, and sometimes you bomb, which every entertainer has bombed. I've had gigs where I've bombed throughout the whole night, and sometimes it's
terrible.
It depends.
I recently had to do a storytelling at a storytelling event, and I feel like whenever I'm before an audience, it excites me so much that I do fine. And I don't know what it was. I didn't connect with the audience, and it just made me panic more and more.
It's not you. It's never about the entertainer. It's just something. It just sometimes it doesn't click. Could be the acoustics of the room. It could be the type of event it is. I've gotten used to, because I'm sometimes background, and people have, because when you hire a Kumsitz guy, you think like constantly everybody has to be in. Constantly, we're doing a kumsitz. You have to sing along.
It's a sing-along.
Kumsitz is a sing-along, right? There's different words. There's kumsitz, there's fabring, there's batas. There's different. A fabring is usually without music. That's a fabring. Like a Chabad would be a fabring is without music. A kumsitz is usually with music. A bata is Friday night.
A bata is without instruments.
Instruments. It's Friday night. It's like. It's at the Rebbe's Tish sometimes, and sometimes it's like way after the Shabbos meal, but the Friday night Shabbos meal. But, it's hit or miss sometimes.
So what were you going to say? Sometimes being in the background, what happens?
Oh, so people. So I've had people come in and like apologize, like, I'm sorry, my audience like they didn't want to sing along. It's like, dude, it's a sheva bracha, it's a bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
I don't expect anybody. People want to have a good time. People come and they want to eat. They're catching up with friends and families. Like, I don't mind being background noise. At the beginning, it was a little hard because you feel like you're singing to the wall or nobody's listening, but. It is what it is. It's more time for me to practice. It's a secret.
It's a very good attitude.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up with talking about borrowing, your great project of borrowing.
Yeah, adaptation. Here it is.
Yes.
Can we see it in the shot? I don't know if we could see it. This is it. So Yiddish Chanukah carols. Not that I'm Kalover Rebbe, but
Did you find a shepherd singing Christmas carols?
I found Jewish shepherds singing. You know what I mean? Composing these songs. Not a lot of people know this. That the major 90. I don't want to throw out a number. Like 80-90% of Christmas carols are written by Jews, and it ties into Yiddish theater also because a lot of them, like Irving Berlin, composed the first commercial Christmas carol. It's called White Christmas. I'm dreaming of a yichulim von Avais in the Chanukah. He spoke Yiddish. His parents were, his father was a shoichet, and he came here. Kosher slaughter. His parents came here during the pogroms, the Russian pogroms. They came here in America. They couldn't really find work as immigrants, so the easiest and the most profitable way to make money was in the entertainment world. So a lot of Jews, the Jews that immigrated from Russia, went into the entertainment business. So Christmas carols were written by Russian Jews. They probably spoke Yiddish. They contributed a lot to Yiddish theater also. So adaptation is not new in the Jewish world.
It's just gone the other way. You're bringing
it went both ways. The famous Mo'ois Tzir that we're singing for Hanukkah, Mo'ois Tzir, yeah, it's an adaptation. It's a German folk songs, which the Christians and the Jews adapted it. The Jews, made it very, very famous, and this is our Hanukkah song, and we don't know about that part of the song, but it's not an original Jewish tune. So, like I said before, the Napoleon's March, Kalover Rebbe, it has been done before. I actually my brother schlepped me to one of the Rov in Borough Park. He's a Dayan. He's basically would tell you if it's okay, halachically, if religiously it's okay for you to adapt these songs. And I just printed out all the lyrics. It's 12 tracks. And
of your album.
Of my album, and 10 of them he said it's good to go because it's not really a hymn. It's not a Christian. It's a secular. A carol is not a Christian song. It's not a song that you sing in church. It's a commercialized, secular holiday song. Call it whatever. So he said it's fine. There are two songs there, which is an adaptation of Silent Night and Oh Holy Night, which I got the most flack because it is technically could be a Christian song. It's not. It used to be. It's not a hymn. It's basically a parody. It's also the fact that it was written by Jews. They're amazing tunes. I didn't grow up with it. I don't think you did. I learned these songs as an adult, 106.7 as Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving hit. Is like I told my wife at the time, what is this? These are beautiful tunes. It's like, you never heard it? It's like, no, I don't know what this is. I mean, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle from Beltz. But
jingle from Beltz.
I don't have that. I don't have that on the album. But those are really one of the songs. But my goal with this album was like when the frum women go shopping in Macy's, and they hear the tunes, and it's like. I'm going to say it in Yiddish because it sounds better. It's like, they goyim gaven alle Neginim finde, so they're taking all our songs.
I see.
Because, the majority. So 50% of my gigs are Hasidim, right? Hasidic, real Hasidic. When I play these tunes, I don't do it a lot, but if I do, it's like, it's all funny because the majority of them don't know the original tunes. I have a problem with the Heimische crowd. The Heimische crowd was a little bit more with it and they know the tunes. For them, it's like, I don't feel, even though I understand what you did and it's written by Jews, I still feel like it irks me the wrong way. I've had after gigs, some of these women come over to me and said, rather not.
What motivated you besides having Hasidic women at Macy's say, "Oh, this is our song"?
So it's the biggest joke in Judaism, or like especially in the secular world. There's no Hanukkah music. We have "I had a little dreidel, I made it," and then you had Adam Sandler made one of those songs.
How it's
Put
spelled.
on your yarmulke, here comes Hanukkah. He has like 4 versions of it from Saturday Night Live. So when I go to like my modern Orthodox crowd on Hanukkah, I would sing those. But there aren't a lot of Hanukkah songs, like especially not. Maybe nowadays they have more. But my idea was like, I could have done original Hanukkah tunes, original carols, but I would have gotten flack regardless, because carols, non-Jewish songs are usually written on a major scale. Major scales are more happy, Most of the songs that I sang today is minor song. It's more like, it's yearning for either Mashiach, it's Ani Mamin, it's Refuainu Hashem, it's like healing. In general, it's like it's more, it talks more to your soul, minor songs. We have in the Jewish world, we have a couple of major tunes as well. I mean, the famous one is the Chuppah song. It's a major, yeah. So we have a few, but the majority of Yiddish songs are minor. So carols are technically written on a major, and I could have done original tunes, but I figured, it's written by Jews. There's a big world out there. They've never heard these songs, and they're not going to hear the original version, for Christmas. And I figured, why not, obviously on the album, it clearly says parody, It says, it's a little hidden. It says parody right here.
I see.
And it's for, like, copyright purposes also. I had to make it clear that it's parody.
All right, let's hear a little
bit. And, yeah.
What are you singing?
I was thinking...
Don't forget the mic.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking either between Chanukah Sameach and Laza Shnei. Chanukah Sameach is Feliz Navidad, and Laza Shnei is Let It Snow.
I like Let It Snow.
Let It Snow? Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
In draußen ist a frostes Kiel, aber bei uns ist warm und schiel. Latkes mit der heiße Tag, lass a Schnei, lass a Schnei, lass a Schnei. Die Sinn ist schon lang vergangen, ich hab gebringt für jeden Fanken. Die Lächterlich sei brennend von der Schnei, lass a Schnei, lass a Schnei, lass a Schnei. Wenn ins Wünschen schon a gute Nacht, und draußen noch du hast a Frost, und als wir singen des Meeres Geschmack, die Eis auf die Wegen zu los, die Lächterlich schon bald verlassen, findet reidlich nur geblieben ein paar Groschen. Chanukah schon bald vorbei, lass a Schnei, lass a Schnei, lass a Schnei.
You didn't translate Baby It's Cold Outside?
Not yet. This is Hanukkah carols too. Hanukkah carols
I see.
too.
How do you
trust me? There's enough. There's enough to make another. It's not very profitable. It's basically a passion project.
Pull in. I think you're out of the shot.
So it's basically a passion project, and another reason why I did it. It's basically to influence other artists. They're a lot more talented than me that can create original tunes for Hanukkah, like in Yiddish. I think Hanukkah is a beautiful holiday. It's a beautiful. It happens to be that it coincides with Christmas. It has nothing to do with Christmas, but it's a beautiful holiday, and it's also during the week you can listen to music. It's not like it cuts off in the middle, like Pesach, Sukkot, you have...
Yeah, it's a very different holiday.
It's a different type of holiday where you can actually listen to sound recording and music. And we should have more music. We should have more... in the Hasidic world, they have Hanukkah music because by the Rebbe's Tish, the composed music, but not in Yiddish. It's on the Hanaides Aluli and Modzitz Hasid, so there are those type of music. But, Yiddish Lieder, Hanukkah Yiddish Lieder, we can use a lot more. Liebe Schmelzer, come on.
I see.
Let's do it.
Well, next up, we'll see it. We'll see it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, my final comment to you is your very, very on the topic, your T-shirt.
Oh, yes.
Very good. Love,
peace, and latka grease.
Should there be a comma, love, comma, peace, and latka grease, or is it to love peace?
It could be both. You doesn't have to. Hopefully, by the time this episode airs, we're gonna have peace, and we're gonna enjoy the latka grease in peace.
I see. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Amen. Where can people find you and find your wonderful music and your videos and everything?
I'm mostly on Instagram. I haven't posted a lot on YouTube because YouTube is, I don't know, Instagram is where it's at with music, but I try to be a little bit more active. This is one of my goals, to be a little bit more active on YouTube as well. So it's Instagram, YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I don't know. I guess
Where's your Hanukkah carols?
Hanukkah carols is everywhere. Hanukkah carols, you can find it anywhere music is streaming. Spotify, most Apple Music, YouTube Music, all the good ones.
Gotcha.
You can find it there. You can basically find me on the socials. If you want to hire me at an event, you can message me privately, and hope to see you at some of your events.
Yeah, that sounds nice. And thank you for being such a joyous spirit. I think many of us have had a really hard time with what's been going on. It's been really hard to watch. So this has really been a pick-me-up.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for taking me away from the news. And
we have to pull ourselves away. Yes. It's crazy. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
sich grieder, es brennen lechtlich, als es scheint. In die Haser seht man, es ist Chanukah. Man geht Geschenken, Geschmacke fangen, die Latkes schmecken, also fein. In die Kinder, sie spielen sich mit. Dreidelach, es ist Chanukah in die Gassen. Geld es klingt, Lieder singt, es ist Chanukah